Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this video I want to show you guys how you can use the render cache to have effects pre-rendered in the DaVinci Resolve 16 timeline so that while you're editing your video you can actually see them play back in real time and have it look nice before you do your final video export. So if you take a look at my timeline, what you'll see here is that the Fusion composition over here on the right has a blue bar above it. That represents that it has been pre-rendered, and if there was actually an effect in that Fusion composition, it should play back smoothly while you hit play in the timeline. What you also notice here is that I have an adjustment clip with an actual effect in it. So this is a video transition that layers on top of two bottom clips in order to create the final effect. If you right click on the Fusion composition, you'll notice that it has an option called Render Cache Fusion Output. It's set to auto right now, and that's why it automatically generated the pre-rendering of the Fusion composition, which right now is nothing. But if you want to force it to always be pre-generated, then you should set this to on mode. If you have it set to auto mode, then DaVinci Resolve will kind of on the fly choose whether or not it should pre-render it and store it in the cache or not, depending on your system resources. So if you have it on mode, it'll always be pre-rendered as soon as it's done completing, turning the red bar into blue. But if we go over to the adjustment clip, you'll notice that when we right click, there's no option here for pre-rendering the cache. And that's because that the adjustment clip, while it can be moved around in the timeline, it's actually dependent on what is underneath it in order to generate the final transition, because you have to transition from one clip to the other one in this case. So in order to pre-render the adjustment clip, you actually need to create a compound clip with the bottom materials and the top adjustment layer. So to do that, I'm going to use the B blade tool to make cuts for the bottom two clips where we're creating the transition from. And then you select these three clips, right click and do a new compound clip. So I can call this transition. And once it's been turned into a compound clip, we should see the option by right clicking to do Render Cache Fusion Output. To ensure that it actually does pre-render and we can play it back in the timeline nicely, we need to set this to on. So once you have it set to on, you should see the red bar appear up here at the top, and it'll slowly turn blue as it pre-renders. It will be faster or slower depending on how complicated the effect is. In this case, it's going to take a little while. So what I want to show you is one more thing. If for some reason you're not getting these bars at the top, check your Playback tab and then go to Render Cache here. So the Render Cache refers to your timeline render cache in edit mode. This should be set to either Smart or User. If you have it set to User mode, then it will look at the file, project settings, master settings, and scrolling down here. For whatever you have checked, which transitions, composites, or fusion effects should be automatically cached or not. But if you have it in Smart mode, then DaVinci Resolve will kind of decide for itself more whether or not it's going to have an effect cached or not, depending on your system resources. Note that there's also a Fusion memory cache. So whenever you're creating effects over on the Fusion tab with nodes, this would be the cache setting that will determine things there. By default, this is set to auto. You can leave it on or off if you want it to always keep the Fusion effect into memory, or if you want it to not store it in memory at all, you can set that to off. Generally, I'll leave that as auto. So now we have our effect completely pre-generated, our transition effect. So if we go ahead and hit play now in the timeline, we should be able to see the video transition. So let's hit play and check it out. And it played back very smoothly. So that's pretty much how it would look in the final export for the video. So enabling the Fusion caching there can be really handy if you want to actually see how the effect is going to look like when it's playing back at full frame rate. So hopefully these tips help you guys out if you're trying to utilize the render cache and have your effects play back properly in the video timeline. So that's going to be it for this video. I've been Chris, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my future video content.